We're very excited to have Jinsik Yoo, former resident artist, back in the studio with us. His exhibition is on view downstairs in the gallery, and we are having a reception tonight. So if anyone is around from 5 to 8, please join us. We are going to start with our land acknowledgement. Okay. We recognize that the Clay Studio stands on the indigenous territory known as Lenapehoking, the traditional homelands of the Lenni Lenape people. We would like to take a moment to reflect on the role of the Lenape as the past, present, and future stewards of the land, and the role of all of us to join in their tradition of respect and caring for the land and each other. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so we are gonna do the Clay conversation a little different. I'm gonna introduce Jinsik, and then Jinsik is going to give his presentation, and we'll save some questions for the end. So hopefully all of you are gonna think about very wonderful presentation and formulate some questions so that we can ask at the end. Jinsik Yoo is a figurative ceramic sculptor from Daejeon, South Korea. He earned his BFA in graphic design from Konkuk University in Seoul. He then worked as a graphic designer before returning to his university as a special graduate student studying ceramics. Jinsik then moved to the United States in 2017 to pursue his MFA at the New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University. He has exhibited and presented nationally and internationally. His studio practice involves translating photographs into paintings, which are then spliced and reassembled into three-dimensional. I am going to share my screen. Okay, go ahead, Jinsik.
All right. So I finished this PPT file last night, and this morning I reread her email, and then I realized it was supposed to be quite casual, but my presentation will be very serious, and well, I'm a little bit worried to make serious mood, but this is what it is.
People need the serious background. Everything is wonderful.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So all right. So my name is Jinsik Yoo. I'm from South Korea, and thank you for having me today here. It's meaningful moments after finishing the program, 2 years long program here. All right. So I moved here in 2017 for my MFA, and after graduate, I moved to New York. This is my New York apartment. Then immediately I realized it's impossible to have set up my own studio because it's too expensive. So I set up my little studio in the corner of my room, and it was literally in the middle of pandemic. Also, the Black Lives Matter, the protests was happening. Mm-hmm. So now, last summer, I moved to Athens, Georgia, and I'm teaching and working at the University of Georgia now. Yeah, this is the whole building. It's really big, building and fancy facility. I'm really happy to back to school facility, which is pressure.
Pressure, you said? Because it's so big and nice.
Yes. All right, I will talk about the journey that led me to my current work and the events that influenced me, as well as the exhibition I'm currently presenting. Something just happened. So it was September 2022. It's been 2 years. 2 years? Almost 2.5 years. It was the first week, Wednesday. I very clearly remember that day because it was the first day uh, of my first teaching like experience. So I like very clearly remember it was happened right after my first class day. So in the morning, I had to I couldn't find my car at the parking space where I parked at the last night, and I thought like I parked in some like a different place, but I realized that blanket was my studio mate's blanket I borrowed. Um, yeah, so I had to call to police, and I realized, oh no, at first I just tell my neighbors on the first floor, like all the buildings, and some people who I met sent me some photos. So the day before, late night, there was a little accident, might be big accident, and one of a car from that accident flew into my car and hit my car and caught on a fire, both of them. It was pretty big. It was tough, and all the neighbors told me like, "Oh, it was really fun to see that in like in Brooklyn." I thought it was filming. It was like, "Oh,
I
good
thought
for
it was
you."
filming.
And the car, the driver who made that accident had no insurance. It was stolen car, and then I realized uh what I was paying for, I mean the insurance, what kind of insurance I was paying for, which was only covering up happening on the road while I'm driving. But it was officially like street parking space, so it was not covering. So I not only lost hold my just car, but I actually spent some $1,000 to figure out that situation. So all this information, uh, I I got this whole information like who and it, who has like what was the car, what happened. It took like 3 months, and only the parking fee at the towing company was $3,000 in New York City. So and first whole month, every morning before I go to work, I had to go to police station. The policeman was really unhelpful. I was just asking to get the records, but it took 1 month. And one day I realized, oh, I'm actually super anxious person and like really easily like being depressed. But I was okay. Like mentally, I was really okay. And then I realized it was not my fault. I literally did nothing. Very clearly, I literally did nothing. And back then, I had also like a lot of different types of problems, like surviving or relationship or whatever. And then I thought, oh, maybe that anxiety was from believing I can control something. So yeah, that moment influenced my like the next projects immediately. Yeah, I mean honestly, I felt like when I got this from the towing company, I was kind of happy. I thought it might be really cool souvenir, but immediately I realized I need to turn it back to DMV. So I literally got nothing. So it's much bigger than I thought. Uh, um, I mean, my face photo makes me shy. So this is the main piece for my thesis show. It was in 2019. It was only 3 weeks before my thesis show opening. And I really was happy. First of all, moved to the kiln from my studio. It was like some part was insanely fragile. Yeah, something like that. And I was really happy with that, the results. And I moved this piece to the gallery space for the photograph. And in the next morning, when I went there with my camera, I found this. It was vandalized by somebody. It looks like column, but actually when I built up the inside invisible, there was an invisible the structure. It's like with three point like tripod. So actually it was impossible. It was really stable. It was kind of like what is that? The pyramid situation.
Yeah,
like
golden triangle.
yeah, it was impossible to be fall down by itself. But yeah, but there was no camera, security camera, and yeah, that happened. Sorry? Oh no, that is in at Alfred for my
In New York.
MFA program. When I was grad student. Yeah. And this is what it is. I don't know. Maybe if somebody asks me what I'm gonna do with this situation now, I'm probably gonna answer some different way. I probably gonna decide have a like different plan for that show. But back then, I don't know why, but I was just obsessed with like turning back together like perfectly. I was just obsessed. It was kind of like the whole process to attach back together was kind of like ritual ceremony, like a Buddhism, something like that. There was some 1,000 pieces was like attaching back together was like super high level 3D puzzle like things. I did it. It took literally 3 weeks. I finished this like literally 15 minutes before my opening. But then I had a really big question. My thesis was about spontaneous, like something happening at that moment. It was like abstract without plan. My goal was like recording on the clay with my body gestures without plan. But through that process, like even though I wanted to talk about see the present, not like following the present or like believing the answer, but there was the answer. I really like focused on like so obsessed with that answer. So that gave me really big question mark. But because of that, like, I mean, a lot of people heard what happened, and a lot of people came to the opening to see what I did. It was quite like it was, yeah, it was pretty successful opening. It was fun. I was happy to meet a lot of people, but yeah, this is what it is. It was what happened, and I had to figure out the questions I got through this process for a while. Okay, this is the last one. No worries. So this is Daejeon, it's where I was born and grew up in South Korea. This is my mom and dad. They lived in the same town, and as I know, their parents like promised. It was not like a promise, but kind of promised to let them marry. And they got like a couple of times dating and got married. Uh, in my childhood, probably half of the memory about my mom was like how she was struggled with really serious depression. And with some reason, I was scared to go back home after school and worried to see something. I don't know. But there was a arts school. It's called 학원 in Korean, like an after school program. And it was running by young artists. And she allowed me to stay as much as, I mean, as long as I want to stay there. I always there by late night, and she brought me home to her. So that's how I started, like, spend the time at the arts program. Uh, yeah, that's how I started making learning arts, and naturally I went to the art high school. And then at some point I realized I'm a little bit different with other, like, my boyfriends. I didn't know what that is exactly, but definitely I loved K-pop boy band much more than girl bands. Yeah, like, but right now I love more Blackpink than BTS, but maybe it's too much. It was my favorite band. It was 1999. Everybody believed this world gonna be end. So look at that hairstyle. It was like a millennial style.
Yeah.
That's how I entered the graphic design um, uh, department, university. And when I was a freshman, I came out to one of my close friends, and unfortunately, I was expecting something like beautiful things as I watched on the American TV show. But she cursed me and asked me to die for this whole world. I didn't know what that means at then, and since then I struggled with really, like, deep depression and anxiety issue in my whole 20s. When I was young, there was a university near my house in Daejeon, which is Chungnam University, Chungnam National University. It often saw intense protests organized by students. And one afternoon, after school, I was playing soccer with my friends on the school field, and we had to cover our face with the clothes and coughed as a tear gas from the university students' protest. And then I remember my mom believed is better word calm, while my father referred to the protesters as troublemakers. Until the 1950s, the many Western countries viewed the establishment of democracy in Asia as impossible. In the 1950s, a British media said, stating, to hope for the birth of democracy in Korea is like hoping for roses to bloom in a garbage can. In 1993, one morning, as I was having breakfast, my mom told me that a new president had been elected. And yeah, I was eating something like apple something, and I didn't know what that means. So I went to Army service. This is the mandatory in South Korea for 2 years, and randomly I chosen as a riot police. I never chosen. It was just yeah, and I was one of the shield person, and we went to a lot of protests, like and yeah, and one day when I looked up, so there was a kind of rule for the shield person to do not like fight with the protesters. We had to kind of like stare so on our toe, the police boots, like yeah. But like when I one day when I looked up, it was protesting about the cure, human rights. There was a two big groups, and the other one was like pretty aggressive for that. And I was kind of confused to uh, protect the police line against the pure human right. This is called the
Protest?
protesters. It was not protesters, like human movement. Yeah. Anyway, because even though I was wearing the government suit to protect the police line, but I knew my body was belonging with that protesters. So that's how I started thinking about like what country uh protect for.
Mm.
So I was a graphic designer in my whole 20s, and I everything was super confused for me. And but the first mission as a graphic designer was finding the perfect answer. But I wanted to think about a lot of the questions I was having to figure out, and it was just not naturally not. I I thought it's not matched well with my personality or my interests back then, so I quit.
Mm.
And I thought uh, making my own things is really like connected with keep making the questions. So I started making my own art. So at first, I just kept drawing. Back then, I didn't know why it's so hard to use colors. I was just keep drawing, and at first, when I learned the clay, I just like the transferred my drawing on the clay because I had no skill set back then. Yeah. And one day, one of my close friends, I told her that it's hard for me to use color, and that's how I can't finish the work. And she suggests me to make the drawing as a 3D, then the light and shadow is gonna help you to finish something without color. That's how, yeah, I started making like 3D things from my drawings. So when I moved to United States, just like naturally, gradually, I just like my desire to wanna use color was like popped up, exploded. I used just suddenly I used the all types of colors all at once on the one piece. And then I thought using color is really like uh, attached with it, showing myself, showing my identity, like personality. Maybe in South Korea, I I think I believed if I finish with like everything, include color, maybe people's gonna know who I am. Because I was a closet in South Korea, so I was really like afraid to finish something. That kind of questions I got in United States. And at the same time, I realized I never felt safety in South Korea. And I assume that's how my anxiety issue was happened. I was always like tried, I mean, did my best to be a hide from community. And but in the United States, I mean, in a, I mean, different country, I especially in United States, I felt the safety. I felt the community. No matter what I want to join or not, I was just automatically I could see I'm in the community. And this work was started from that questions. The naked people. Uh, I thought the clothes. I wanted to use the clothes element as a symbol of safety. So as a like a borderline of safety when we are wearing or being naked. I wanted to use that clothes or the naked body as a boundary between unsafety and safety. And this is the series of parades which I'm working on until now. It was so when I moved to New York City, I went to Cure Parades. It was my first experience, and then like very clearly I felt the community, and I wanted to make some like I mean, human figure forms to talk about the community. Uh, and to talk about the sympathy, sharing, having a bond. Yeah, this is the series. In Korea, this is Jaesa, it's my father. Um, it's this is a ritual ceremony to invite our ancestors to the dinner, and like yeah, it's a traditional and it's been practiced on a national scale since the legendary times through the ritual have changed. Family to family, there might be differences in what exact foods are prepared and what days the rite is observed, but the center components like asking the ancestors to enter our house, serving food and drinking, blessed by incense smoke, playing a bowing are standard. So through this the ceremony, it's meaning like the living must care for the dead in this way so that the dead will in turn care for the living. The present, past, and the future is like being connected through this the ceremony. And while I mean traditionally it's this ceremony is being continued by the man in the family. While am the one only boy in our family, I supposed to keep doing this ceremony through my son. But since my um, uh, sexuality, I don't think it's hard to expect that situation. So that's how this project was started. uh, yeah, I worried like, oh, maybe my turn was the last turn. After I die, there's no more son to keep doing this. Then what happened for my ancestors? So the figures in this show are messengers between me and my ancestors, between this world and the one beyond. Um, shaping clay and the firing it, like that whole process, I believe that is my own version of Tesa, the ceremony. And in the Jesa, the incense is really the important part. Like it's dividing, separating this life and the afterlife. Also, me and my ancestors, but also connecting between. There's another. The next one is yeah. That is oh, it's so dark. Yeah, this is the incense between me who I'm bowing and then my ancestors who are having the dinner. So since the smoke of the incense is so central to Jesa, I knew I needed to foreground that element in the pieces for Palimpsest. I've been learning and experimenting with different methods of atmospheric firing over the last several years and decided to use Raku firing for many of the messengers in the show. The Raku involves the reduction or oxygen of ceramics just after firing in a specialized kiln. And I mark the smoke instead of like the incense on the chesa table and trying to bring and connecting between here and there. Yeah, and I mean the theme is I believe the permanently marked by smoke through the firing process. These messengers are able to hold the door open like forever. So this is Bayer, an artifact exhibited at the National Folk Museum of Korea in 2024. So last year, it's called Sangyo. It's a serving as a carriage to the afterlife. And one of the elements, there's a Muppets, like it's called Gokdu. the wooden figures. They serve as messengers, guiding the dead people safely to the afterlife on the Sangyo. So these works are about the people who are carrying lights in the procession ceremony to express gratitude to ancestors and wish for happiness. I got the idea about this series when I visit East Hampton as a part of a group show in 2023. Our host brought us to the beach to watch the stars late in the evening, and we came across someone's dinner party. It was super luxury dinner party, which felt surreal to stumble upon. The crowd gathered beneath the light installation amidst the sound of the ocean in the darkness. There appeared to me like a secret midnight procession. With this series, I wanted to create the possibility for ceramics' long life to carry on a kind of 제사. And yeah, so that show is happening in the first floor here in the clay studio now. And so I keep like documenting the humanity and the community and that kind of ceremony through my pieces. And according to the documentary, in a human extinction scenario, most of the artificial structures left behind by humans will crumble and disappear after millions of years. 100 million years from that moment, the remnants of human civilization will have decomposed and transformed into other materials. However, even then, one of the artificial artifacts that will maintain its form is bronze statues and ceramics. Whereas earthenware, being similar in scientific properties to fossils, will endure for hundreds of millions of years unless physically destroyed. This work through this Palimpsest show layer new messages over traces of the past, and I hope they will continue to shine even after I'm gone. Yeah, thanks so much.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And you don't have to worry about your ancestors because 100 million years,
Sure.
the ceramics will still
Yeah, and
be there.
I'm kind of workaholic, so it'll be enough.
Maybe. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the title, palimpsest? That's a favorite word of mine, but it's not used very often. Do you want to say why, what that means to you?
I heard that I'm one of my the image I thought was, even though we are trying to erase, it was already marked in like different ways, so it can't be disappear. It's like our like body memory or the cultural things which our language which we can't change, even though we are trying to set up our own like generation things. And yeah, that reminds me about my family tree. Like, yeah, and when I'm learning the the raku process, I always thought like, oh, this is something like a ceremony. It's so much like ritual things, and it was just that word that word was just automatically remind me that the connection with um, the firing process, like marked with smoke, which is impossible to be like erased. That's how I put that title.
That's a great title. You know, what's impossible to erase or the images that are left behind. Smoke is both ephemeral, but it also can stain and leave a mark for a long time. I have lots of other questions. Does anyone else have questions they want to ask before I jump in? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yes, it's been changed a lot, very rapidly. I think that's the Korean society's power and the potential. But at the same time, as you know, that brings a lot of like social issues. It's like a lot of problems. So yeah, a lot of people are fighting with that to figure out. But, yeah, and definitely there's a already like very strong community. I was just like personally like was hiding or something. Like yeah.
How has it affected you that since you've come to the US, you've moved 4 times to 4 different cities? Like, how do you think that being parts of communities in different places, kind of having to join a new community now for the 4th time, now that you've moved to Georgia, has that informed the way you think about your work or the way you think about your identity?
Oh, hmm. I'm first of all, I'm still learning the America situation. So it's it's really big, and every part has so different culture, like or political issues and vibe. It's really, really like for me, it's such a different country that's using the same language. So I'm still keep learning new, and definitely. But the first, when I lived in Alfred, I was in the bubble, like as a student. It was not easy to see like the social community or that kind of things. And when I moved to New York, it was also just like totally new country, which is it was so like blended. Everything was so like mixed. And now in Georgia, it's pretty much conservative sites, and it's also campus town. So I don't know. It's like it's not easy to see clearly as a foreigner because I have no many experience to compare it with to see what it is. I'm still learning. I don't know. Maybe it's not clear answer.
That's okay. It's also just the process of having to keep learning over and over again that I think can have a strong effect on your sense of yourself and your sense of your own culture. So do you think that coming to the US, whether or not you understand the US or these different places, what do you think anything has become more clear about Korean society to you since you're not living there anymore? Do you look back and think, oh, now when I was in it, I couldn't see this, but now that I'm far away, I look back and can kind of understand?
Oh yes, definitely. I it's hard to say like specific things, but I can definitely can see and understanding a lot of things about South Korea from here. It was when I was in that society, it was like kind of too close to see something because
Mm-hmm.
it was too close and it was just happening. So when I moved here, when I see through like media, South Korea, it's like one of the things I can think about and compared with other like options and other informations. And it's pretty uh, satisfied experience to especially understand my um, mm, my family and my like a former generation's culture and thoughts. It's,
Becomes more clear
yes,
when you're
becomes
far
more
away
clear.
from it. Yeah. I think that that's really, I've heard that over and over again from people who, and I mean, even spending time for a few months in another country, I feel like I could understand my own culture better because you need something to compare and contrast,
Mm-hmm.
which can be, I like that word, satisfying. You
Yes.
sort of feel like you understand. Oh, do you have a question? Oh, Bradford has one.
You mentioned that you came to when you really started experimenting with color, went from big monochromatic to beautiful, expressive explosions of color. Were there any other catalysts? What prompted your jump into color other than just looking at
I kind of was ignoring about the color parts, and I just reached out that moment. I have to figure out. Also, since I have no um, like school education, like academic level, I have no arts academic level education background. I was like designer, like in the fine arts, and I had to learn a lot of like the voices and languages of all the different elements like the form language, color language, what happens when I use the color. Since when I was learning and learning about that parts, at some point I really wanted to figure out what is the meaning of using color, and definitely was happening in like MFA program. Um, yeah, and then I had to figure out using color as a symbol. Mm, yeah, maybe that moment when I like changed, I mean, have like different perspective of color when I as a like element I can use on my work as a symbol tool. Yeah.
And I mean, I wrote this down when you were talking about how adding the color would finish it, and you didn't want to finish it because you were afraid people were going to see who you really are if you finished it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now I don't think using color means finishing, but back then, the since I was like a learning process,
Yeah.
I thought like coloring is the last steps to finish a piece, and I probably was afraid to finish, like not only using color, but just kind of afraid, like worried to finish and show, ta-da, this is what I did. It was kind of like scary um, moments.
Yeah. Because your art's going to be judged, but you're going to be judged too.
Yeah, it was kind of like showing my diary. Yeah.
Yeah. 8 years?
8 years, 7 years. Oh, once a year, yes. Ah, that's a good question. Mm, well, so far, I was curious about that part too, but so far, I'm not like, there was no, I mean, not that moment for me to think about where I'm like in. But um, since I'm like 2 steps away from South Korea and also America culture, yeah, because I'm still like alien here. It's more comfortable to talk about them. It's like just as a one of elements of my question. Uh, yeah, that's how I feel, and not yet I feel where I'm like into
In between?
in between. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's why I'm like more. I'm trying to talk about the boundary things because it's kind of it became metaphor. It was not a metaphor, but it became metaphor. I'm literally on the boundary, the line. For me, it's not a line. It's like maybe it's really wide line, has space because it's my world. But as a minority person, it feels like I'm standing in the line. It feels like the same way when I in between South Korea society and America society. Yeah.
How was your work received in South Korea, if you show in South Korea? Is there a critical?
Oh, I have a first solo show coming this summer in South Korea. Super excited. Um, but yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking about. Like excited, but not worried, but still question mark how my body is gonna react to show my pieces. Usually, like in America, I mean, using foreign language is really helpful to say everything what I want to say, because something like I believe, at least my parents not gonna understand what I'm talking about. So it's kind of like I don't know the secret code for me to using like, but in Korea definitely title, um, what is this called, like a flyer or whatever, all the information is gonna be written in Korean. And I'm kind of excited to see how my body reacts with that situation. I don't know.
Would it be this Palimpsest piece about ancestors, which is relating to the Korean, which would be recognized?
We'll see. I don't know.
We'll see.
So you talked about how for your MFA show, you base the form off of like your body movements, and then later you talked about how like your parade pieces and stuff that people do in the
do you still make works that are based off of your body movements? And kind of related to that question, do you have like a method of displaying your works differently based on if they're like created in the image of your body movement? And you talk a lot about like safety and the different ways to represent that.
Oh, wait, do you have enough time? That's a good question. There's actually something I want to say.
You
Oh,
want me to show the other slides that I put together? Or you want me to go back to this? Oh, I thought you said time for a picture.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
what
mean, it's no, it's 2:03, so I was worried the time.
we can, people can leave if they need to leave.
So when I worked on making the gestures on the clay, then I was still struggled with my anxiety issue and depression issue. And I read a lot of like books to figure out. I mean, thankfully, my body want to figure out that there was that power energy. So I read a lot of books, and one of the theme that if I can see visually, I can overcome. And I was super curious how the anxiety looks like. And since I'm like super anxious, I'm like so like the chunk of anxiety. It was kind of just a study. Like if I'm recording my body gestures, is that can be how the anxiety looks like? That's how my thesis was about the gestures. And now I'm more focusing on that gesture things as the character of clay. I'm like more focusing on like this uh, discovering about the ceramic language, and I think that part, like being moved with our body, is so like very unique ceramic language, and I'm like more focused. I mean, using that part as a ceramic artist, and also on my work, I'm like trying both sides in between very like realistic, illustrated human figure form and abstract form. These days, I'm more like illustrate, like becoming more realistic, like I mean, human face or something. But I want to go back to more like abstract version of human figures, like maybe it could be gesture. As I mentioned before, I'm like want to start from me, not like setting up the goal, like what I did when I was a graphic designer. I'm like just having experience how and see how my body is reacting with that. And yeah, so there's no purpose now. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm just keep having experience with the results what I make. Maybe that could be the answer.
Yeah, that was
That was great.
the big that shows the sort of more tall figure,
Uh-huh.
like fighting. Like I'm curious, like that figure to me has such a different energy and build than the other figures. Like talk about anxiety and I can feel the tension in that figure that's not sort of as loving and flowing as the other figures that are on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, like the intent behind the figure, you know, was it made first, was it made last, you know, where did it come in the whole process?
Oh, that piece is definitely was made, like that is the oldest one. And I thought it might be like quite suitable to include that piece in this show too, because these days, like even though I'm talking about the Tesa ceremony, but also Tesa is a symbol as the borderline between here and there, and like I'm kind of collecting that situation, something in the borderline, and that piece was about that moment uh, when I decided to, it's a little bit like too much, but killed myself before when I wanted try to hide from the society. And yeah, it was that moment. Like it was kind of the self-portrait, like holding myself. And yeah, that figure is also myself. So I wanted to, it was, yeah, that head is symbol of past and that body is symbol of present. So it was also on the somebody on the borderline, that moment. That's how I include that piece in this show.
We do have one question on that's related. Hold on one second, Diana. That is very related to that, which is asking about how myth relates to your work and that the names of your pieces are often Greco-Roman heroes, and how does that connect to the, which you basically just talked about, but maybe you could talk just a little bit about why you decided to, like, what do Greek or Roman myths mean to you? Are those things that you found comfort or something about your identity in? I mean, you're talking about that piece, which is Perseus, right?
Yeah.
And he's killed Medusa. So,
yes.
the idea that you're holding the head of yourself in the past, it's like that's almost an evil or like it's a bad thing that you're kind of you're eradicating. So I guess that this is someone who's on Zoom just asking you to talk about your relationship with that Greek and Roman mythology.
Greek and Roman mythology.
Like, have you find meaning in that, and that's why you named the pieces those things, or was it the other way around?
First of all, as a art kid in South Korea who learned very like classical art like training. I don't know why, but in my generation, it's totally different right now. But when I was young, in the art education in South Korea was like training the drawing and painting of Greek statues.
Okay.
So it was just naturally like really familiar that form with me because I entered the art high school, and before then I also got like really hard training 4 years before the 3 years high school program. So it was almost like 10 years. I'm like super familiar with like drawing and painting of the Greek statues. And so naturally I was super interested in that like mythology, stories, lines, and all the characters. And in here, because most of my audience are American, and like definitely the Greek the mythology is one of the main like really big the cultural based historical the part. So I thought it might be good medium to talk about like conversation with this audience in this country. Definitely I'm like bring in like more the Korean mythology characters into my solo show now. So it's about the audience.
Yeah, very smart. Okay, one more question, Diana.
Several of the figures seem to be growing from trees or another tree like they have a lot of natural leaves and tree structure. And I wonder, is that part of the mythology thing? Or does that mean quite a lot to you, the relationship
on the lamp piece. With,
Pieces on the table.
Yeah, the
Oh.
lamps have sort of.
It's actually decoration parts to hide the cutting line of the like combining. Yeah,
The photo on the
and
beach. They have
actually
a,
in that photo, there was that decoration. So I just brought that element directly.
great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jinsik.
Thanks so much.
That was really wonderful. Thank you for doing all that work.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the gallery at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.